Donald Trump has denied accusations of racism for years. But what happens when someone who actually lived through the controversies of the 1970s explains why they believe those allegations never really disappeared? Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's get into it.
Mark's in Brighton. Mark, what would you like to say?
James, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I first covered Donald Trump in 1975.
Go on.
He was, at that point, a builder, developer, and he and his father had opened an apartment complex called Trump Village.
Yeah.
He was openly racist in that he never allowed black people to live there. Eventually, he got taken to task in 1975, and he ended up having to sign what's called a consent decree, which was that he had to stop discriminating. 3 years later, he had to sign a second consent decree. That's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
All right. It's as simple as that. This is a guy who, through the years, as many of your callers have pointed out, never, ever, and this comes from his father, never admitted he was wrong about anything. And that's how he's running the country. And put simply, to quote a Columbo episode, all he wants is all there is, period. He hates non-autocratic Europe. He hates Keir Starmer. He hates you. I hate to say it, but it's true. Donald Trump hates anybody that stands in his way or has any progressive bone in their entire body. And he thrives off chaos, which is why nobody can predict what he's going to do next, because he thrives on that kind of chaos. And the people who benefit from that kind of chaos. Does anybody know how J.D. Vance ended up being vice president?
Well, I mean, the word is that it was what Peter Thiel wanted, and that Trump was persuaded by one of his sons that...
That's right, Donnie Jr.
Yeah.
Donnie Jr. lobbied incessantly for J.D. Vance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the gig.
When you say you covered him in the 70s, in what capacity, Mark?
I worked at a radio station.
Oh, that'll never catch on, will it? Well, then you're well placed, because the 1973 stuff, I think Hillary Clinton brought up during the election, and it didn't land. I'll tell you the other thing it does, if we're going to get psychological, which we have done so far today. It explains his continuing hatred of diversity, equity and inclusion, because that was one of the occasions when he did actually get his knuckles rapped fairly robustly by the authorities for being a racist. For
You know what DEI actually stands for?
Go on.
Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka.
I'll ask you what I've asked everybody then. How does he get away with it? And for you, this is a 50-year canvas that you can paint on now. How does he get away with it? When some of the stuff you're telling me is so obvious, and much of it is on the record.
He gets away with it because for many years he was a New York phenomenon. All right? People in New York knew who he was. People in New York knew who his father bribed so that he could get, for example, the construction of a hotel that was against zoning law, that kind of stuff. And then people on the West Coast started knowing him when he started spreading his wings a little bit. But most people in the middle of America had no clue who Donald Trump was until The Apprentice.
Right.
And that whole "you're fired" thing, which is entertainment.
Sure.
Okay, I never watched it, but it's entertainment.
Yeah.
That convinced Donald Trump that one day he could be president, because these people in the middle of the country would follow him once he developed a line that they could agree with and that they could align with. This is a guy who appeals to the religious right in America, who's been divorced 3 times, had I don't know how many affairs. I mean, it boggles the mind how easily people get away with it. But listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Before I go, can you do me a big favor?
It depends what it is.
Will you stop? Well, you can't stop. Will you tell people to stop using the word woke until they can define it?
I've done that already. I've written a bloody book about it, Mark. I've done my bit in this field, but
Okay.
yeah, no. I before you go, actually, you need to do one more thing. How does it play out? What happens next?
What happens next is whatever the most chaotic stuff he can dream up in his head is. The tariff thing is just the beginning. He's going to start coming down, and this won't really cause a ripple in the rest of the world. But he's going to start coming down on Americans who disagree with him like a ton of bricks. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, it's kind of happening, isn't it?
Very, very soon. But tell people to stop using. Do you know where the word woke came from?
Of course I do. Yes, it was a good thing. People who were alive to or awake to discrimination and unfair. Oh, go on then, correct me.
No. In 1949, a blues singer by the name of Leadbelly, you know who he is?
No,
was?
Go on.
Okay. In 1949, Leadbelly did a song called Scottsboro Boys about 9 men who were almost lynched because they were accused of raping 2 white women. Eventually, they all got off, and one of them went into hiding. It's a very long, convoluted story. At the end of that song, Leadbelly does a narration where he says to northern black people who were traveling through the South, which was a dangerous undertaking in 1949, and he said at the end of that narration, stay woke. Be careful. That's what stay woke actually means.
Wow. Alert.
Yeah, be alert. Because if you weren't, and 5 years after he wrote that song and said that, a young kid named Emmett Till was killed by racists attached to a refrigerator and thrown to the bottom of a lake. That's what woke is about.
You're very good, Mark. How did you end up in Brighton?
My wife isn't here, so I can say this. She convinced me once I retired to come over here, and I enjoy it. I'm actually, in retrospect, I'm really glad I'm not in America to experience this. I was in New York like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and people in New York are beat down. They were beat down economically, which is why so many of them turned on Joe Biden.
Right.
But they're being beat down on a daily basis. I saw older people walking the streets who basically were clinging, and I mean clinging, onto a rent-controlled apartment because that was all they had.
And that provides fertile ground for the kind of fantasies that Donald Trump is selling again.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
And by the way, if you want to see what Donald Trump is really all about, read Mary Trump's book.
That's the second recommendation today. And it still doesn't, no one can go all the way there, can they? Because that's his niece, I think, describing him in terms. You've got all of the things you remind us of, the court cases coming out of his ears, the things he's said out loud, never mind the things he's been convicted of, the bankruptcies, the appalling associations, and yet here he is. There's something else, isn't there? There's something, if we were religious people, Mark, I don't know whether you are or not, there's something almost Faustian about this level of achievement, given the backdrop that you describe and that others have described all morning.
That all it means is that if you have money to start with, which he did because his father gave him $3 million, and you're able to say, I never did anything wrong.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. To quote, who was that, Shaggy?
Shaggy, yeah. The sage, the great.
That was an incredibly powerful call, and in my view, it captured something that often gets lost whenever Donald Trump becomes the center of these debates. The caller wasn't talking about one controversial comment or one isolated moment. They were pointing to a pattern that critics have been arguing about for decades. Supporters often say these accusations are politically motivated, but critics point to a long list of incidents stretching back to the 1970s. They cite allegations over housing discrimination, Trump's stance on the Central Park Five, the Obama birther conspiracy, his proposed travel ban targeting several predominantly Muslim countries, and a series of remarks that have sparked repeated accusations of racial prejudice over the years. Whether you agree with those criticisms or not, it's clear this debate didn't begin when Trump ran for president. It's been part of his public image for a very long time. What I also found interesting was the reference to Mary Trump's book. I've never read it myself, so if you have, let me know in the comments. Does it add meaningful insight? Or is it overhyped? I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. At the same time, this debate comes as Trump continues to dominate the political conversation. His recent tariff decisions have once again divided opinion. Supporters argue they were a negotiating strategy, while critics say the later pause showed he backed away after economic pressure mounted. Whichever side you're on, it's another example of how almost every move Trump makes becomes a political battleground. For me, that's what made this call stand out. It wasn't filled with shouting or personal attacks. It connected today's political arguments with controversies that have been discussed for decades, giving viewers a broader perspective on why Donald Trump remains one of the most polarizing figures in modern politics. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the caller made a convincing case, or do you believe these accusations have been exaggerated over the years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.